Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very warm welcome to a very, very special evening, and a very, very special program this evening. Launch and discussion on the book, Power Within, the Leadership Legacy of Narendra Modi. We still have some people having their tea and we still have, I think, 1 or 2 minutes left. So let me remind the members of 1 or 2 good programs that are coming up. Maybe just 2, 3 of them, and then we will move on to the event of this evening. The first event that's coming up next is on the 10th of August. That's a discussion on the book, Unconquered Horizons, Southern India's Resistance Icons. This we are doing it with this foundation called the Colors of Glory Foundation, which is founded by the Armed Forces veterans. Captain D.P. Ramachandran is the founder and chairman. He'll be there. Air Marshal Mateshwaran will be here. Dr. Nandita Krishna, she is a historian and environmentalist. She is going to be there, and Rear Admiral Dhingra. This is going to happen on the 10th of August. The next program is again very, very interesting. It's on the 12th. Demographic dividend. It's a boon or a bane. We have Mr. Balasubramaniam, IAS. We have Mr. Dr. M. Suresh Babu, Director, Madras Institute of Development Studies, and Mr. N. Satyamurthy of Policy Matters. This is going to be the next event. And let me tell you all just about one more event before we call the guests onto the stage. That is on the Saturday of 17th of August. We have a very, very interesting panel discussion. In fact, it's a conclave from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Very limited seats. I'll request all the members and even other guests, if someone is interested, to please register for this event. This is about solving India's solid waste crisis. Lessons from Madurai. So since it's Madurai, you would imagine that Ms. Mridula Ramesh would be there. She is the CEO, Sundaram Climate Institute. She is also Executive Director of Sundaram Textiles. She will be there. Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, Chancellor, Chairperson, Governing Council of Korea University is going to be here. Ms. Anjali Bansal, Founding Partner, Avira Climate and Sustainability Fund. She is also on the board of Tata Power, Nestle and ONDC. She is going to be here. And we have a lot more, many celebrity guests that say. So please be available for all these 3 programs, and we have programs lined up until end of September, even few in October. But let's not go into them now because we have a very, very interesting event this evening. May I have the pleasure of inviting onto the stage the dignitaries to occupy their place on the dais this evening. May I invite Mr. K. Mahalingam, President, Madras Management Association. He is also Partner Director, TSM Group of Companies. Author of the book, the hero of the evening, Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, author and mentor. Dr. V. Kamakoti, I think he'll be just arriving in a short while from now. Mr. Rajiv Lochan is here, Managing Director, Sundaram Finance Limited. Mr. Anand Raghavan, Chartered Accountant and Trustee, Palkiwala Foundation. And the moderator of this evening, who is going to get it all for us, Dr. S. Vaidhyasubramaniam, Vice Chancellor and Tata Sons Chair, Management of SASTRA Deemed University. Samyad. Okay, in that case, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just quickly introduce our President, MMA. He's very familiar with this audience, but since we have a lot of guests here, Mr. K. Mahalingam is a distinguished alumnus of NIT Trichy and IIM Kolkata. With over 35 years of experience, this transformative leader and impactful investor spearheaded T.S. Mahalingam and Sons into a respected South Indian automobile aftermarket brand. Under his leadership, the company diversified into financial services, real estate, and angel investing. May I now request Mr. Mahalingam to deliver the welcome address for this evening. So,
good evening, everybody. A very warm good evening to all of you. It's by Chennai standards, it's been a rather cool over the last few weeks, and the AC here makes it feel a little cooler. But somehow I'm basking in the warmth of the intellectual incandescence emanating from the luminaries on stage. Thanks all of you for making this so stimulating for all of us. It's indeed a rare honor and privilege to deliver the formal welcome address at this very, very special discussion on the theme of the book, Power Within, the Leadership Legacy of Shri Narendra Modi, Honorable Prime Minister of India. It is, the beauty about this is that talking about and discussing about leadership legacy is a set of brilliant thought leaders. So it makes it even more special for me to share stage with all of them. I consider it an honor to welcome this evening Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, author and member, HR Capacity Building Commission, Government of India, founder, SVYM, NPRA and Mysuru. Thank you so much for having this book launch at MMA here. It's an honor and pleasure. Dr. V. Kamakoti, I think we're waiting for him in Madras and in the academic circles of the country. I think he's already a legend. It's indeed an honor to have him as part of the panel discussion. Really looking forward to hearing from him on this. If we talk about academics, and we have a shining jewel in the financial services as well, there's no more brighter shining jewel than Sundaram Finance. And good to meet and good to welcome Sri Rajiv Lochan, Managing Director of Sundaram Finance. Thanks so much for making it extra special for us. And my good friend Mr. Anand Raghavan, Chartered Accountant Trustee, Palkewala Foundation, who's, if anything intellectual happening in this city, you cannot miss Anand in those circles. Thank you. And Dr. S. Vaidhyasubramaniam, I think, Vice Chancellor and Tata Sons Chair Professor of Management, SASTRA, Dean University. The discussion for this initiative started when I was vacationing and he called me on vacation. And I should say that I think that Group Captain Vijay Kumar is meticulous in planning and execution. If I've seen somebody very close to that or similar to that, that's why I can tell you. Okay, thank you for hosting this at Madras Management Association. I wish to welcome all of you and all delegates watching this from across the globe. A few facts about Madras Management Association. Started in 1956, 8,000 members, 8 chapters, 14 times winner of the All India Best Management Association, All India basically. This book talks about the contrast between Western management concepts and Indian management practice built on the Indian ethos and culture, and brings to us notice through the style of leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. It also quotes some wonderful anecdotes highlighting the unique traits of Shri Narendra Modi ji through relentless hard work and open communication style, which has propelled him to the position that he occupies today. It's a must read for people who would like to learn about management. At Madras Management Association, we're always learning from multiple styles of leadership and inspiring leadership, and this is going to be yet another or one of the best leadership lessons we'll be having. I'm sure the audience today will enjoy this session and learn a lot. I should say, that the hall being full on a Saturday evening is rare, I can tell you. It's normally half full is good for us, and it's normally packed with students. There are very few students today, but despite that, the hall is full. So I think it's an event which has drawn a lot. Thank you again for doing this here. I wish to thank and invite all our past presidents, management committee members, and the secretariat who put this together. We really miss Group Captain Vijay Kumar, who was really wanting to be here, but had to go on an urgent official trip to Delhi. He's back this evening, but he's been on WhatsApp and phone with all of us for every half an hour to make sure this happens well. Thank you again. Welcome all of you. Thank you all of you for being here. Look forward to a great evening. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, time for us to launch the book formally on the MMA platform. I request the dignitaries to step forward and just, Yeah, we are getting into the panel discussion a while from now. And before I invite the author to deliver the opening remarks for this evening, let me have the pleasure of introducing all the panelists here very, very briefly. Dr. R. Balasubramaniam, the author and member, HR Capacity Building Commission, Government of India. He's an esteemed development activist, author and leadership trainer. He founded the Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement and the Grassroots Research and Advocacy Movement in Mysuru. Thank you so much for deciding to launch this book on MMA platform, sir. We will be shortly having Dr. V. Kamakoti, once again very, very familiar for the MMA audience. He's also on our committee. He's the director of IIT Madras, joining as faculty in 2001 and becoming director in January 2022. Specializes in computer architecture, information security and VLSI design. He'll be joining us very shortly. We have Mr. Rajiv C. Lochan. Mr. Rajiv Lochan is the Managing Director of Sundaram Finance Limited. He previously served as the MD and CEO of the Hindu Group and was a partner of McKinsey and Company. He was also part of the MMA Managing Committee. Thank you, Mr. Rajiv, for joining us. We have Mr. Anand Raghavan, a chartered accountant, a seasoned chartered accountant with over 30 years of experience in taxation, media, entertainment, and financial services. And he began his career at Sundaram Finance Limited and later became a partner with Ernst & Young Limited. Thank you so much, Mr. Anand, for joining us. And last but not the least, the moderator of this evening, Dr. S. Vaidhyasubramaniam. Dr. S. Vaidya is the Vice Chancellor and Tata Sons Chair Professor of the Management at SASTRA Deemed University, Thanjavur. Alumnus of the Harvard Business School, he holds a PhD in MBA Education in India and an MBA from Asian Institute of Management. Thank you so much, Dr. Vaidya. We look forward to your moderation of the session this evening. Before we hand over the session to the moderator, may I invite Dr. S. Balasubramaniam, author of this book, to come and say a few words.
Namaskaram. Coming to Chennai, sort of in one different way, it's coming home, coming to Tamil Nadu. Saying that coming from a person who comes from Bangalore, I think in today's world, thankfully it's raining a lot, so I don't think there's a controversy in saying that. But that being said, I mean, it's a proud occasion for me and it's very overwhelming to see so many people, like you all mentioned, on a Saturday evening. It also shows the kind of response this book and the subject has been having across the nation. So I want to thank first the moderator of this evening's occasion, Dr. Vaidya. In fact, in a conversation, we were just talking and he never even let me finish the conversation. He said, we are launching it in Madras. And after that, everything happened. So I have no role to play except land here in Chennai. And so I must thank you for creating such a wonderful opportunity for all of us to come together. I thank all the panelists. I know it's a Saturday evening and Rajiv was telling me you work on Saturdays too. And it's so nice that you are there. And Madras Management Association is something which is known all over the country, not just in the state of Tamil Nadu. So having a book launch here itself is very satisfying. Swami Mitranandji and all the other friends here all come here this evening. I see a lot of friends, a lot of relatives. It's also an occasion to meet some of my old classmates who come here too. So it's a great time to be here. But more importantly, this book, I thought I should speak a little bit about it and the journey towards getting this book written. In short, this book took me close to 2 years to write. Somebody was asking me, how many times did you rewrite? Writing time is okay, but how many times did you rewrite? And when you work for a man like the Prime Minister, it's obvious that you can't afford to make a mistake. Despite all that, there's a couple of typos in the book, this current print. We spotted it later, but subsequent prints have all been taken care of. You know, it took me 32 times to rewrite it. That's the effort it took. The reason I'm saying that is something for very, very specific reasons. Because if we live in a world of such extreme polarization, that if you write something which the bucks like, then the critics will hate you. If you write something with the critics like, then your world is finished. But the problem is both don't know the Prime Minister at all. That's my final conclusion. Because it's having had the privilege of watching him from close quarters, watching him function, having a lot of interviews with him, a lot of one-to-one discussions, I think he's a man yet to be fully understood by the nation. But there's one thing which I could say with all conviction. This book, whatever I have written, comes from a very responsible space of intellectual integrity. So I've taken, the reason I wrote 32 times was I wanted to be conscious of the fact that I can't err on either side. I didn't write for an audience. I didn't write for somebody to pat me on the back and say, great work, great book. I didn't write to be preferred over for some position because I already have a position. I wrote because it's a story to be told to the whole world. And what is the story? The story is about India's contribution to leadership. And we can't lose sight of that. What our nation has achieved and what we hardly speak about is the enormous civilizational wisdom that a country is full of. You know, we also live in a time when we either romanticize everything Indian and therefore we discard it. We'll say we had an aeroplane 3,000 years ago, we had plastic surgery 5,000 years ago, all that. We make it so very emotive that we forget that today's world demands evidence. Or we criticize everything India and Indian, that we discard it again. So finding the mid path, finding the point of equilibrium is what I have tried to do. I'm not trying to say the Western models of leadership are not good enough. Neither do I say that India's leadership is the only solution for the world. All I try to present is the wisdom of India, analyzed and using a case study, Prime Minister Modi, and I leave it to the reader to himself draw a conclusion how far advanced we are. It's up to you, and if you are nuanced enough in your understanding of what we are offering, if there's something 3,000, 4,000 years old, I bring in Western literature too. 50 pages of the book is my research notes. So for the academic minded, it's an academic book. For the practitioner, it is a practitioner toolkit. And for an Indic purist, it's as Indian as it can get. There's a very extensive glossary of terms that's under 30 pages of all the Sanskrit terms and their meanings that I've used in the book. So it's I would say a journey of, I can't call it hard work, but definitely a journey of love and frustration to write, because I would get up at 3 in the morning to write. And I had a day job too. And working in Delhi on a day job means it's a whole day. And it was a great opportunity to write. But why did I start writing? The reason I started to think about this was 40 years ago I went into the forests of India. And I was deeply pained by the fact that the government had no idea of what governance was. I was pained by the fact that government didn't understand citizens. Government didn't understand tribal populations. So I come from an area where I started working, where there are 4 reservoirs, 4 dams built. And one of our early prime ministers called it the temples of modern India. I found them as the cause of the doom of modern India. The national park was declared and all the tribals living in the forest were thrown out mercilessly. So I felt the state in its wisdom created the poverty in the first place and then decided to fight the poverty in tribals. So it was very difficult for me to come to terms. As a young 22-year-old, I was angry. But for my conviction in the principles of Vivekananda and Mahatma Gandhi, possibly I would have taken to the gun myself. And I thought something is wrong. Why can't these people sitting in Delhi understand that policy making starts with compassion? Policy making starts with understanding citizens. Policy making starts with listening to the voices of the masses. And since I couldn't get anybody to listen, I was only angry and frustrated. And in that frustration, wrote several books. This is my 9th book actually. So my earlier books are reasonably popular around the world, and they were actually calls of anguish. They were all calls of frustration. The book was I, the Citizen, and then I wrote a book called Voices from the Grassroots. But finally, the bottom line was I couldn't solve the problem. I found such extraordinary leadership in tribal chieftains. And I was asking myself, if these people can exhibit such leadership, why aren't people in Bangalore and Delhi learning from them? But then, we live in a nation where if you are poor, we call you ignorant also. And we say, oh, what are these poor, ignorant people? No, and we don't expect them to even understand all this. We think only a Harvard MBA can teach you how to explain all this. So, that led me to say, okay, let me go to Harvard itself and understand what do they know more than us. So, spent some time there. After a master's, I realized that was not able to answer the questions I had. But Harvard actually helped me ask the questions better, and which meant I started asking myself questions. Why did I even come here? What did I learn here? Or is there something missing back home that I have not understood properly? And so my journey of jumping into, it all started, I was watching a Tom and Jerry cartoon with my son, very young at that time. And it suddenly occurred to me, why are we giving him a packaged Western narrative of what a cat is and what a mouse is? And we have our own Jataka tales, we have our own Panchatantra. And beyond what the Amar Chitrakatha tells us, we don't go deeper than that. 3 pages, a child simply turns it, and then we read it. All of us have grown up on those things. The Chanda Mama comics, I don't even know if Chanda Mama comes now. It doesn't, right? It's all wound up with thing. But I grew up on that, but still it was not deep enough. Then I thought, let me understand this a little deeper. And then it went on to Munshi's works, Rajaji's works, because I'm not a student of Sanskrit. And so I had to depend on other people's translation. Though I started learning a little bit of Sanskrit, I can't even say there are a lot of Sanskrit scholars in this audience. It's nowhere near that. So the glossary of terms is kindly done by a good friend and mentee, Dr. Anuradha, who worked very hard on putting it all together. So I was looking for what can we learn in our own backyard. And there's a very famous saying in Kannada, maybe there's one in Hindi too. In Kannada we say, Hittil Gida Maddalla. The little weed in our backyard will never be seen as our medicine at all. It has been somebody else's backyard, or somebody must put it in a capsule and give it to you, you will believe it. And so that's what we all grew up in. And to me, then I thought, let me go deeper. And I was blessed and fortunate to have 2 gurus in my life. My Diksha guru was Swami Achalananji. And the privilege of knowing him for just 5 years also made me understand the scriptures from a particular angle. He was from Vivekachudamani to Atmabodha to all the scriptures that he could help teach me in those 5 years. I learned from him. And another guru, Swami Suresha, the Ramakrishna order. I would call him my Vyavaharik guru, because running an organization, I needed to know how to run it. And he would guide me in that. One of the 2 great Advaitins I have known. And in the course of a conversation, I started sharing these frustrations of discovering so much in Indian literature and scriptural wisdom, but unable to actually package it together. And more than 14, 15 years ago, Swami Suresha told me, I don't understand all this. You ask me to explain Maya to you, I'll try to do. But you ask me to explain leadership in the world of illusions, I don't know what it is. So it was a nice conversation, and in a moment of possibly wisdom or his own way of looking at it, he said, I know somebody as a young man came to the Ramakrishna order to become a monk, and we turned him away. Professor Kamakoti is here, so. And he is now the Chief Minister of Gujarat. Why don't you use your model that you're evolving to filter him and see whether he fits your model? So what started off trying to find a case study for the model I was describing. I thought he's sitting somewhere in Gujarat, I don't know him, I can't reach him. How can I even study him? It's illogical to expect me to use him as a case study. And so I did the next best thing. I already done the research, so I wrote another book called Leadership Lessons for Daily Living, where I wrote about what generally is seen as ordinary people, but who exhibit extraordinary leadership. It could be a street vendor in the footpath of Mysore to an auto driver I met in Mayiladurai. And in all of my journeys across the country and the world, I met different kinds of people. So I wrote about them using the Indic references. But I didn't mention anything solid in that book, because it was just a more easy reading book. But then fate has got its own way of conspiring. And 3 years ago, when the Honorable Prime Minister invited me to join the Capacity Building Commission, which is setting up something very close to his heart, which he says which will revolutionize India and its preparedness to meet future challenges. Our job is to make civil servants stop thinking like a karmachari and behaving like a karmayogi. And something which was very deep in his vision. And he said, how do we go beyond a rule-based approach and get the people to understand they have a role to play in serving this country? How do you make a bureaucrats future ready? Now, these things were music to my ears, because that's what I was teaching at Cornell, and I thought, wow, I got a chance to do this. And more importantly, I had a chance to see him in action. So I took the courage and said, I should capture this. I have so much of research. Let me put it all together and say, will you allow me to go deep into his life? And he only made three directions for me. He said, the book is not about me. The book is about India's leadership. The world should understand our leadership models are far more ancient, far more stronger, far more deep-rooted than anything else. You can use me as a case study, but don't forget the fact that you're talking about India. Second, he said, after reading this book, 1,000 leaders for this country should emerge. Then your book is a success. Not by how many people read it or how many books were sold, but how many leaders this nation gets. And the fascinating part was, he said, it's about offering a way forward for all of us. You know, he doesn't have to pretend to be humble in people like me who work with him. In one conversation with the commission, he even said, you're building capacities of civil servants. You haven't given me my capacity building plan yet. So your job is also including me and telling me what I should improve on. So that is the kind of approach he has got. And he's a lifelong learner. And I was looking at how do you package him, how do you unpack him. And many one-to-one conversations, incidents which are not known to the outside world. Some incidents which are in the public domain, I have to use it for the context. Some incidents which are very unique. In fact, there's an incident with Chennai itself, which I have not written. He had come to Chennai maybe a year or two ago, I don't remember when, because I didn't put it in my book, I didn't spend too much time dating it. He had come to Anna University for a convocation. And he recollected this incident and told me, I was just sitting there, because all of us, including me, I asked him this question, where do you get your energy from? Because all of us in Delhi know how long he works, everybody in India knows that. If he's on a flight to the US, he's working on the plane. He lands back half an hour later, he's in a meeting. So maybe the people who accompany him are jet lagged, but he's not. And the magic of his work is something that all of us aspire to imitate, but we can't do it. And so I asked him this question, and he told me this anecdote. He said, I went to Chennai, and I was told, my people who briefed me told me this is the university where the highest number of students graduate. That's what he told me. And he said, and I saw the hall was packed, but it didn't look like this, seemed like the highest number of students of the university. So at the same time, I was very cognizant that the Vice Chancellor shouldn't feel bad, but after some time I asked him, is this all the students are graduating today, or are there more students? And the Vice Chancellor told me, yes sir, there are other halls. We have connected television sets to those halls and they're all watching from there. And the humility of the Prime Minister is he will never disrupt anything. Whether it's a presentation you make to him or a conversation you have with him, he's never disrespectful or disruptive. He listens to you very, very deeply. And he did the same thing. At the end of the session with the Vice Chancellor, he told him, can I go meet the other students? Can you all ask them to stay back? And he left the hall, much to the possible nervousness of the SPG. He simply went into the other rooms, and they were not stages like this. They were just halls watching televisions. So you would sit on a chair, stand on a chair, stand on a table, started talking to young people. And the funny part was, he told me, when I do that, people think that I am trying to show off something or trying to impress somebody. I know that state will never elect me, so it's okay. So I went there because I get my energy from these young people. You asked me, where do I get my energy from? He said, it is these young people who give me energy. When they talk their aspirations, when they share their problems, because the only way I can get to sitting in Delhi, he was a pracharak, so he used to be roaming around the country, and that is a different connectedness. But the default of your position disconnects you from a lot of those realities by definition of the position itself. Though he is very well connected even today, you can pick up the phone and call any of his old pracharak friends in some village and say, how is it things happening there? And in my research, I also discovered some fascinating things. His principal secretary, Dr. P.K. Mishra, again an extraordinary bureaucrat of this country, who's been with him for close to 25 years. When he was the Chief Minister's principal secretary, he narrated two incidents to me, which I think I must share. I only quoted one of them in the book, one I am not. One incident he shared was when the Swaminarayan temple had a bomb attack. Even before the DGP of the state or the Chief Secretary of the state or the Principal Secretary, the Chief Minister got to know the bomb attack, the Chief Minister calls the three of them and says, I have heard there's a bomb attack in Swaminarayan temple. Rush people right now there. Within 3 minutes of the bomb attack. Now that is connectedness. Even today, across the country, you can get messages because he has still got people whom we can relate to on a one-to-one basis. The second incident he said was, he called the Principal Secretary one day and told him, just find out that in this particular part of Gujarat, I am very happy that one civil servant in the Women and Child Department, he even works on Saturdays and Sundays. And in his own humorous way, he said, the problem is he's not working in the area where he's posted, he's working elsewhere. Sort of jocularly pointing out, this fellow is using government jeep and going to tourism. And he knows, but Dr. Mishra told me, I don't know how he got to know, but the fact is he knew and I verified, and that fellow was doing this regularly. So, information like this to extraordinary leadership. And that's what I captured. I don't want to tell you what is in the book because I want you to buy and read it. But this is something which is extraordinary because India has got so much to offer. This book is not just an academic exercise. This book is written for practitioners. This book is written for different kinds of people. And a lot of people have endorsed it. And all of them tell me they read the book before writing the blurbs, whether it's Bill Gates or Anand Mahindra, N. Chandra. In fact, the next launch in Mumbai on August 16, Chandra himself is coming and launching it. And so a lot of these people who believe that this is a book for corporate leaders too, as much as it is for farmers to students to everybody. These principles are generic. I only use a case study of the Honorable PM. But more importantly, what I would like to tell you is, it completes what the world needs. We are living in a world where black swan events are the norm. They are not exceptions anymore. Our leadership, public leadership around the world has failed the world. Many times they are unable to manage the problems that is getting created. Half the time they may be creating the problems too. And we need leaders who are extraordinary. And my last chapter in the book is called The Dharma of Legacy and the Legacy of Dharma, where I explain and try to argue how the Indic model alone, based on the Purusharthas that we know of, is something which is possibly a solution for the whole world. And that's what India is trying to live. The Delhi Declaration which the Prime Minister made in the G20, or the 4 Ps. People, finally it's all about us, but we are not the only inhabitants of the earth. The planet matters too. We need profits. Vivekananda says you can't talk about Bhagavad Gita on an empty stomach. And so you need profits, but more importantly, we need peace. And this only public leaders of an extraordinary capability can enable for us. So this is sort of, in my opinion, I've tried to put together a lot of literature, synthesize as much as I could. I've actually sacrificed going deep into one concept because I had to bring in the wider concept of India into it. One of my colleagues told me, academic colleagues told me, he said every chapter is 4 or 5 PhDs hiding inside. And if the next generation takes it up, a lot of young people here, and go seriously into researching it, I think we can build the body of literature. And finally, all scriptures are interpretational. The Bhagavad Gita, if you read Ramanuja's Bhashyas, it's a different way of looking at it. Shankara will be a different way of looking at it. Madhvacharya is a different way of looking at it. The same Bhagavad Gita, each has a different perspective on it. Mine is also interpretational, but I use the lens of leadership. You don't have to agree with what I have said, but if you're disagreeing with it, you have better have a strong justification for it. And give us a good rationale which will be strong enough. I'm also open to learning. The subsequent editions will be definitely taking all inputs I'm getting from around the world. But more importantly, I want to conclude saying the great Vedic statement which Swami Vivekananda gave as the mission statement for the Ramakrishna order. He said, Atmano mokshartam jagathitayacha. I think if I could find somebody who's a living embodiment of it, personal evolution and personal spiritual journey, but it's not just for myself. The manifestation of this is Jagat Sita. Or the other way of looking at it, I create the Jagat Sita and therefore I evolve spiritually. And this is something which I have seen very strongly in the Honorable Prime Minister. And that is why I felt this is a story to be told. I thought I'll take the risk of being called a psychophant. I'll take the risk of being called whatever adjectives people use today. But I decided this book has to be written, the story has to be told. And it's only less than a month since its official launch. The publishers are very happy. They're happy because it's already a bestseller. And it's in the 4th reprint already. And they are impressed that 4th reprint within 4 weeks of printing is a big thing for them. It's also available in various formats. It's also available in the US and UK, US editions and UK editions. But my hope is not about, because the more sales that happens, this knowledge comes from community wisdom, scriptural wisdom of India. And therefore I felt it's appropriate that the proceeds of the book doesn't go to any individual. So all the proceeds coming from this book goes to PM Cares, and therefore give back to the citizens of India. And my hope is not the proceeds. My hope is not the number of sales. The real test of the whole thing would be people pick it up, people read it, people internalize it, and awaken the reader is hiding inside every one of us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up to him. The author is here and externally. Thank you very much, sir. And since we missed Professor Kamakoti being there when we just have a launch of the book, if you could step forward. President MMA, my request to you. We don't want to miss Professor Kamakoti from the speaker. Thank you. All the dignitaries on the dais. Time for us to go on with the panel discussion. May I now invite Dr. Vaidhyasubramaniam to take the panel discussion forward.
Scholar, author, and my good friend Dr. Bala. A very distinguished set of panelists, Dr. Kamakoti, Mr. Rajiv Lochan, and Mr. Anand, Swami Mitranandaji. Again, a wonderful audience that only organizations like MMA can assemble together on a Saturday evening. A very good evening to all of you. It is my proud privilege to moderate this session, which I assured to Dr. Bala the moment I came to know of the work that he has done, that it definitely has to be done in Chennai with the organizational assistance of MMA, to which he readily agreed and gave me the complete freedom to organize this event. Thank you very much for that. But let me first begin with a confession statement. As an academic, and an academic who teaches, we are used to giving homework to our students, and at times we also expect students not to complete their homework and come to class. So I stand before you as one such a student today, because this is actually an extensive homework that we had to do to read the entire book and then come and have a panel discussion. But let me give the confession that I have not read this book entirely, but I will assure you I will definitely read it. But I have done some justice by going through the book, understanding the critical components of the book. So much to say that more than talking about the text of this book, I thought I will, as a background, give the context for this book, and that way that will be a good backdrop for this panel discussion. And the context will be two. One is a personal experience of Swami Vivekananda himself, about which the author spoke a lot during his introductory remarks. And the second is a research that was done in the early 2000s. When Swami Vivekananda went to Chicago to address the World Parliament of Religions, he went after he undertook a Bharat Yatra. In fact, he traveled the country from north to south and east to west. And those were the times where it was not an enriched India, it was an impoverished India. Certain parts you had famines, certain parts you had floods, but bottom line, the country was ravaged by both. And it was in that situation that he went in 1893 to Chicago to address the World Parliament of Religions, which was organized to also establish a different theocratic supremacy. But in that platform, it required the saintly statesmanship of a towering personality like Swami Vivekananda to address the audience, and with a thumping desk emphaticness, he told the audience that I come from a country that has the potential to lead the world. And the moment he made those opening remarks, especially sisters and brothers of America, the applause that he received, the duration of the applause was more than the duration of a short speech at that point of time. So it requires that amount of confidence in one's own nation to make such a statement, especially at a time when you have seen personally that the country was ruined by floods and famines all over. And let me fast forward to the research that the Indian Council for Research in International Economic Relations, ICRIA, in the early 2000s. They did a research to understand the civilizational propensities of nations. And an important finding was how the civilizational propensity of Bharat was so dominant, so much that the world's biggest temple was in Cambodia, that you had a remote village in Vietnam where people still speak Sanskrit. There was a central university in Indonesia that was called the Sandipani University. And the dominant presence of such civilizational symbols of India was present beyond the current boundaries of India, not because India exercised its military power. It had tremendous soft civilizational assets that it could demonstrate to the entire world. And that proved a very simple theory that countries with soft civilizational assets can register such dominance in different geographies of the world. Now, why am I saying both of these instances? The book actually connects various leadership models that have primarily find its source in many of these civilizational assets, in whatever form it might be, predominantly in various scriptures that the author has very meticulously drafted, some of the examples in multiple languages, and used a careful term, which I think is the best way to actually capture the essence of this leadership, and he calls it the enlightened leadership. It is only an enlightened individual can have this level of leadership that the book continuously keeps citing with different examples that are deeply rooted to our Indic assets. And that's the reason why Swami Vivekananda's idea of India, and he did not stop with his 1893 talk. In fact, for people in Chennai, for some of you might know, 4 years later, not very far from this place, on the coast of Marina, in 1897, he made a statement, and he said, I am closing my eyes today, and I see Bharat Mata 50 years from now, fully free. And true to his words, 1947, we got our independence. So that was the prophetic wisdom and the confidence that he had on this nation. And it is exactly the same type of feeling that you see in this book springing up with a variety of symptoms that I could personally relate, and I'm sure most of the readers will also. And this catchphrase, enlightened leadership, can come only if people have adequate experience in being in public sphere public service. And he narrates in this book how during the late 1970 tragedy in Morbi district in Gujarat, at that time the Prime Minister Modi, as an ordinary Karyakarta of RSS, had to work with team members to handle decayed dead bodies. And there are two things that I often say in leadership: level of concern, level of control. If your level of concern is within your level of control, then you have to act. Sometimes, you will see roads with potholes. You can do a little bit of work to make it better because you are concerned about it and you can immediately act on it because it is very much within your controllable limits. But all that the modern generation does is just take a photo, put it on Twitter and say, Chennai Corporation, the road is bad. But you require a person who needs to immediately spring into public service if he is concerned about an act or an event which has a solution which is very much within his level of control. And this is what kind of built in him over a period that manifested in different forms, that now as the Prime Minister of nation, his level of concern is very much within the level of control. Any problem, he cannot say, I am not responsible, because he has all the power under his authority to solve the problem. So it requires that aggregate levels of training at different points of life to become such a leader who can find solutions not only to our country, the way in which he handled COVID, and I'm sure the panelists here are going to talk a lot of other examples that there are solutions that can also address the global problems. So with this background, let me first begin this session where I will be moderating the three distinguished panelists. And to be very honest with you, we did not have any rehearsal before. So in fact, to be very honest, I should thank Mr. Anand. Actually, yesterday afternoon, he actually filled the absence of Dr. Preetha Reddy, who was supposed to come here. So all of us got together last night and decided this is how we are going to ration our time. But definitely, I know the type of panel that is here, they will leave this entire audience an enlightened soul. So let me first begin with the first question, and then I leave it to the panelists themselves to decide the order in which they are going to respond. So my first question is actually, what according to them, they can pick whatever leadership attribute from this book that the author has cited, that they can resonate so well with their personal or professional experience, that they think has actually been an inspiration for them, maybe by hindsight, or they used Prime Minister Modi as an inspiration to actually exercise their leadership abilities. So each of them will be sharing that one or two leadership qualities. They can do more if they want to, but the time is 5 minutes, and then I will ask a few more questions and then leave it to the audience. So this is the first question with which we will begin the panel discussion, and please allow me to just sit there and I will moderate from there. Is it okay?
Yes. So would you all like to take it from there itself? That's also fine. Actually.
Yeah, I think that's better.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes for the question and answer session as well. We have more than 300 people already watching the program. The numbers going. We're also getting some questions online. Any of you have a question to ask the panel, please ask for this question, slip and a pen from here. Then we can take it on this time.
So Vaidhy has given me 5 minutes. Very difficult to cover in 5 minutes, but I will do it. So I have 5 interesting traits which I had personal experience in basically observing our honorable beloved Prime Minister. First thing was Man Ki Baat, something unimaginable, where he just took one of the important points which Balu sir has put this podium to people. And this was one very, very interesting stuff that he started. And when we did a word cloud for this, since I have only 1 minute for it, did a word cloud for it, the central word that came there, can you guess? of all the 50 episodes, first 50 episodes, we took it and we did a word cloud. The central word, the largest word was people, right? Next was country. And then there was one world. And that when you reflect what has happened in G20, he came out with this very, very interesting motto, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The whole world was stunned. One future, one earth, one family. I think this is one great trait where they had actually moved from a podium. These people, somewhere he said, some, Northeast, he praised one small product and that person is exporting today. So this is the impact which Man Ki Baat had. The second thing was, of course, igniting hope. So one of our alumnus, Ganapati, was involved in this COVID app, right? And so this is like, we do the vaccination, but we need to have certificates. The whole world was watching at us. There he went and said, COVID. Prime Minister responded, "Hame jeetna hai isme," made it COVID. And that was the inspiration. That's a very small thing, but it was a great inspiration where we literally went. Friends, we have done 250 crores vaccine today, not 1, 2. People from the West did vaccine. That will not work here. 6 degrees centigrade, it goes off. We would have required at least 3,000 to 4,000 rupees to inject a vaccine just for the cooling part. We did not 1 vaccine, 2 vaccines. It worked here. We also exported to other countries free of cost. So this is where we are proud to be Bharat. The next important thing, which is very much close to many of our hearts, basically people who said bye to the Western world, sat in India with a hope that we can do something for our country. The mid of the COVID, when we were being, tortured for even the Arogya Setu app, when I want to put it on, I was one of the architects of those Arogya Setu along with a team of 20-30 people. When we wanted to put it on one of the Play Store, one of the big companies was troubling us saying, no, you need to do some check, this check, then that check. We actually started feeling the dependency. In the middle of the COVID, when Prime Minister was addressing people, he came out with one word called Atmanirbharta. Today we have L1 suppliers, we have the National Telecom Security Directive, we have BSNL going 4G, completely Atmanirbhar with Tata's technology and CDOT technology. Several things came out just because of that one word Atmanirbharta which came. We are very eternally grateful. As a technologist, I am very grateful. So this is navigating change. And the next one was the intersection of leadership and spiritual growth, for which Balu sir has covered quite a bit in his book. I'm not going to talk about the book, he has to sell the book. But one very great intersection which made me, I had also the opportunity to do this, was the Kashi Tamil Sangamam, 1.0 and 2.0, 2 times. So this is where the idea came, and a lot of ideas started flowing from him, saying that we need to take people from Tamil Nadu to Kashi and establish this connection. That Kashi Tamil Sangamam played a great role. After that, we had several Saurashtra, Tanjavur Sangamam, we have Yuva Sangamam, so many Sangamams came. But this idea of trying to unite people in basically understanding each other, this was a phenomenal idea and it was a very great success. And only our Prime Minister Modi ji would have thought about it. So really, I am not also a psycho-fan, so you may call me, but I am a great Modi Bhakt. And this is one aspect which has really inspired us. And so many Yuva Sangamam came after that. So we had people from Tripura coming here, people from here going to Tripura, Northeast, East, West, so many things that happened. Last one, charting a bold course. So the KTS 1.2, I was organizing it. So I was also on the stage, but I was a bit tensed. KTS 2.2, I thought, okay, everything is fine. So Prime Minister came for inauguration, so I thought we'll enjoy, sit there. But just 24 hours before, we had been talking several times, several people have briefed him about this language translation, and he really was concerned that language will become a barrier for all the initiatives of the government, whether it is digital initiatives or even uniting the country. So that aspect, it was in his mind. Just 24 hours before, we got a call from the PMO saying, Honorable PM, would like to have his Hindi speech translated Tamil online with this headset, and it should be done through Bhashani. That's all. From Kashmir, God till my LA prairie of my village. I was praying all the God that it should work. So the first 5 minutes it did work. So after that, this is what I loved. So when he finished his speech, then when he was walking back, he said Kamakoti ji and went off. But when the whole function finished, he said bye to all. Then he came, he hugged me and said, "Aapka ye work kiya." So that's the inspiration I got. So this is the tough taskmaster that he is. Once you commit something, he sees to it that you deliver. And this is a very, very important leadership. So 5 minutes, I kept my time.
Thank you.
But I have a lot more to talk. I have 200 such instances. Another time we'll take it.
You will have to write a book. Oh, Rajiv?
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. First of all, I want to thank MMA, Dr. Vaidya, Dr. Balu for giving me a chance to sit on such an eminent panel. It's a truly rare privilege, so thank you for that. I have not had the chance to rub shoulders with Prime Minister Modi like Professor Kamakoti has. But back in 2006, I had the chance to work with the Bank of Baroda, and we put together a strategy for Gujarat for the bank. And the chairman of the bank, the general manager of Gujarat state, and I had the chance to meet the then chief minister, Sri Narendra Modi. And we were fully expecting like a battalion to come. You know, his personal secretary, the minister of finance, so on and so forth, the finance secretary and so forth. But he came alone. And he had a small towel. He came and he spent maybe 45 minutes with us. And frankly, he knew more about what the bank was doing in the state of Gujarat than any of us. It was truly stunning. So that's the only interaction I've had physically with him. But the fact that he came alone itself was mind-blowing. And the fact that he knew so much was incredible. So I certainly was blown away back then at the gravitas of the man. I read the book, I must say. It's a exceptional book, and I would strongly recommend everyone go through it, simply because it weaves the concept of leadership both from the Indic standpoint but also the Western standpoint, and it weaves it very well. There's a lot of parallels but also a lot of paradoxes that get showcased, and therefore I found it quite instructive. To me, leadership is less about leadership, more about followership. And from that standpoint, leaders need to have followers, otherwise they can't be leaders, right? So how do you inspire others becomes the crux of what you do. And to my mind, there are two sort of foundational aspects. One is you need to have a very deep sense of purpose that drives you. And second, you need to have a very deep sense of awareness, both of yourself, the people around you, but also the context in which you're operating. And in these foundational aspects then get, sort of interwoven with courage of conviction, care and commitment for people, for causes and so forth. But most importantly, energy and optimism that you've got to bring to bear on an ongoing basis. And to me, as I read through the book and reflected on, these elements of leadership, there are multiple instances and multiple ways in which the Prime Minister has demonstrated all of these in a integrated way. And I think to me, bringing it all together quite seamlessly is perhaps the greatest service he's done to all of us, so that we can look, understand, and perhaps interpret and internalize. But Dr. Balu, you've done a yeoman service, I think, to the country in many ways to understand this. And to me, the power within is also quite powerful. Because I think as leaders, we have to make a small number of big decisions. That's the mandate. We don't have to make large number of small decisions. That's not the mandate. And in making those small number of big decisions, you've got to be convinced internally. Not so much look for validation or concurrence from the external. And there'll always be critics, there'll always be people that have contradictory views, skeptics, and so on and so forth. So having an internal locus of control is quite important to be a leader with conviction. But lastly, I think there are two other aspects that are important. One is discipline, and the second is humility. And if I have perhaps the words that that Dr. Balu used to encapsulate all of these, Viveka, Vairagya, Tyaga, Seva, to those I would perhaps add Anushasanam, discipline, and Vinamrata, which is humility. If we're able to package all of this, and I think the Prime Minister does a fantastic job of bringing all of these aspects together, regardless of who he interacts with, whether it's the senior bureaucrat, whether it's Elon Musk, whether it is a little farmer in Devas, Madhya Pradesh, he's able to connect and relate quite remarkably. And so I go back to a deep sense of purpose, a strong sense of awareness. When these two are in place, I think you have the opportunity to build on that. You bring courage of conviction, you bring care and commitment, you bring energy and optimism, and his physical vitality at this age is remarkable, right? 17, 18 hours of working virtually non-stop, going across multiple time zones to be able to do this. But also the humility with which he backs off critics. And there are a large number of critics around the world that will only look at what remains to be done or what flaws there are or what misses have happened, right? And so to be able to withstand that requires, I think, a hell of a lot of humility. And I think these aspects of arguably the Western way of looking at leadership and followership have been encapsulated quite nicely by the Prime Minister, and I think beautifully portrayed in the book by Dr. Balu. So I'll stop there. There's probably more we can talk about as the conversation goes along. Definitely recommend you find a way to read through the book.
No, I will quickly wrap up the first question because some of them have already been covered. First of all, I must thank Balu sir and Vaidhyasubramaniam sir for giving me this wonderful opportunity to go through this. I picked up this book at around 8 o'clock yesterday night and went through right up to 2 a.m. I did not study even harder for my CA final exam. Let me make a very honest confession, because this book is about an individual whom all of us hold in such high esteem, we can't do a flippant job of it, first of all. Secondly, what I found very fascinating is, when we went through all the chapters, there are very tiny, impactful incidents loaded with practical sort of experience-oriented incidents which brings out the leadership qualities of this individual, the Prime Minister of this country. And more importantly, the concept of leadership as enshrined in this book is not about an individual trait. It's about an institutional mechanism of passing on leadership to the next generation. And I will tell you, read one sentence which captured the essence of leadership, which in fact I was ready, and Vaidhyasubramaniam rightly asked the question. The answer is in this sentence itself. Leadership is not about power or authority. It's not about power or authority. It is about understanding oneself and others around us, coming to terms with our own inner potential and what we are capable of, and exploring how we can expand our capacities by mobilizing others. So leadership is not about yourself, it's about others. And the teaming part, which all of us are very accustomed to in corporate life or wherever we have worked, is the essence of institutional leadership which comes out in this book. That's exactly what is conveyed, and I would request all of you to go through all the chapters. It comes across all the chapters through various incidents that have been captured.
Okay, thank you. That was a quick first round. But let me again begin with my second question, and can we maintain the same order? I know Professor Kamakoti doesn't have a passport at all. This is because of the directions of the Kanchi Mahaswamigal. So he decided not to leave Indian borders. But I find something very, very, outstanding in Prime Minister Modi's leadership, that still IIT Madras was chosen to establish an international campus at, when Kamakoti was is still the director of IIT Madras. So what is your view on how Prime Minister Modi has globalized Indian education? So because you've been in the thick of action, can you share some inputs on that?
Fantastic question. Thank you very much. I have an elaborate answer, can go for 2 hours, but I'll finish off in 2 minutes. So the time that took where myself, the Secretary, Higher Education, and Dharmendra Pradhanji, we were discussing about setting up of an international campus, and where we decided 3 aspects which I think our Prime Minister had driven it very clearly. We need to go to a place where they need us. Number 1. Where the school education is good, because that's where we are going to get input. I need not go to a country where I get people from other countries and educate, so what will that country benefit? So that's one very important question. What is the use of IIT to that place? And third thing, the government there should be willing. So if we don't have the government support, it does not. So we decided on Tanzania, because Africa, because we know that we all share the same pains of us being robbed by some Western countries at some point of time. And we also see that they need us. So that's where, from that date till the day when the Honorable External Affairs Minister went and signed the MOU there, can you just guess how much time? This is an international campus, first of its kind of any IITs to have done this. 2 times cabinet meeting here, 2 times cabinet meeting, or the equivalent of Lok Sabha meeting, Parliament meeting there. It was 6 months. Right? Impossible at any point of time. This is just grace and the momentum which the national education policy, especially the Vishwa Guru concept of education policy, has driven. And so we were very happy. I was told that Prime Minister asked, classes shuru, when are the classes starting? Kab shuru ho raha hai? He said already started. So I was very happy about it. So on October 24, 2023, which happened to be Vijayadashmi, but also United Nations Day, we commenced the classes. But friends, what we want to get here is that we as an academician, we had a lot of support and we also understood the leadership. For example, they came and asked, what are the commercial terms, right? We said, we are India, Bharat. When, in Vidura, when Krishna was going up, Vidura was asking, Krishna, you are planning to go up, give us some upadesham. He said, ask some question. Ka dakshina? He said, jnanopadeshaha. Krishna said, give knowledge. I didn't tell that, but I told him that, we are Indian, we are coming there to share our knowledge. You are setting up an IIT Madras campus there. Whatever money you generate, I don't want 1 rupee from there. Saraswati is mine, Lakshmi is yours. Okay? I could see tears in that person who came and talked to us. Friends, you won't believe, within the first 2 months, they have given us 200 plus acres of land to IIT Madras to establish that campus. So that's why we are going. But what gave us the confidence was the leadership, right? So we were able to talk, we were able to convey, we were able to move fast, and we got the thing. Today the second batch is starting. So this is also very, very important, because for us to become a superpower, the superpower doesn't come just, as he said, just by control, but compassion. And that act, right from the way we exported vaccine free for developing countries, the way now we are now spreading this education, I am sure this is where India should be loved as a superpower. It should not be, feared as a superpower. Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Vedha, if you take 1 minute.
Please.
I have an inside track to what IIT Madras is doing in Zanzibar. More than the leadership, which I think Dr. Kamakoti referred to, I think the energy that it has unleashed in the academic unit of IIT Madras, the bureaucracy in India, and certainly the government apparatus in Zanzibar has been truly mind-blowing. I know of instances where the External Affairs Minister, the Education Minister agreed to a discussion or a meeting at very short notice. I know calls were organized with 50 ambassadors and consul generals of all the countries of Africa with 1 day's notice, just to provide support to this effort that one of the institutions of IIT of India is setting up overseas. And I've not seen, to be frank, I was skeptical that between July 5th or 6th when the MOU was signed and October 24th when the first batch was coming, whether we'll have the capacity to execute. In general, we are slow in executing. But it was truly impressive in that short period of time how the class was put in place, curriculum was designed, faculty showed up. And to echo the sentiment from the Zanzibari side, the temporary campus was actually up and running. I've now seen the ISB get set up in India, Ashoka University get set up in India, and Kriya University get set up here in Sri City. And certainly the first batch was always in a campus that was not fully ready. And this campus was fully ready with digital whiteboards and biometric access to classrooms, with an auditorium that is truly world class, probably as good as this in terms of the facilities, in a country like Zanzibar, which is maybe like India is in the 90s. So hats off to not just the Prime Minister for the vision, but the energy it has unleashed amongst people that normally we wouldn't characterize as having this kind of energy. It is truly remarkable how the energy levels have gone up, and to me that's the impact, I think, of the Prime Minister and the government on the country today.
Yeah. Now, I'll just pick from where you left. If we need to create a multiplier effect on the energy levels, you've been, I think your Bank of Baroda visit was maybe when you were in McKinsey as a consultant, and then you have headed one of the largest media houses, and then now one of the largest financial services entity. Do you think that energy level is now getting replicated with a multiplier effect, that you still feel that, today, you talked about leadership is about creating followers. Are there enough followers today that who believe, yes, these good things will definitely happen in India? Because we see a lot of, critics also saying India will not change, it will be like that only and all of that. So what is your view on that?
No, I think this process is irreversible. And I think we as a citizen to put a number of reforms in place which cannot be reversed. And enough momentum has built across these reforms that I think this momentum will carry forward. But also I feel the timing is quite auspicious and in many ways, right? If you think liberalization began, and the post-liberalization generation were now becoming adults and voting. People that were born around that time were voting, and the single largest first-time voters took place in 2014. And there was a decisive mandate after 30 years that we had a government that was no longer a coalition and didn't have to suffer with coalition dynamics. And to me, that was the biggest signal from the citizens of the country that this was a direction that was a clear mandate. And what followed from there, demonetization, GST, IBC, a whole bunch of reforms, which all of us knew for 60, 70 years had to be done. Article 370 getting, there's a whole bunch of things that have happened, which I think have signaled to the citizens of the country that there is a new ambition, a new aspiration we should move towards. There's also, I think, a lot more clarity in the minds of our people that we come from a heritage that is respected, that is perhaps not necessarily a slave to 300, 400 years of civilization that the West, the Anglo-Saxons have known, that we have a multiple of that in terms of our own heritage, which for a longest period of time we used to poo-poo. Not anymore, right? So that sense of pride in our heritage has set in. So you put all these together, a set of reforms that are hard to reverse, a set of momentum that has got created, a generation that has grown up only in prosperity, not so much in scarcity. Most of us grew up in scarcity. This generation has grown up in prosperity. You put all these factors together, I think the energy level of the country has just gone up several notches. This is visible now in the Virat Kohlis and the Surya Kumar Yadavs and the various athletes that are now going to Paris that Sir is going to join right at the Olympics. You see the kind of levels we are aspiring to. A medal used to be unimaginable. Now we are saying how many golds are we going to get, right? So I feel this is irreversible. And so it's up to us on what pace we'd like to take forward and how we will make the Atmanirbharta as well as the Viksit Bharat actually come alive. The reality is we have 70 plus years and maybe 300 years of baggage to undo. And somehow people, particularly the critics, expect magic to happen.
Yep.
That in 5 years or 7 years or 10 years you can undo what sins we've committed for decades.
Yep.
And that manthan will take time. The churning will take time before the nectar comes up.
Sure.
All the poison has to get ejected. No? That's a process. And we just have to be clear that the direction we're taking makes sense. that we're all aligned behind that direction and do our bit. So, to my mind, it is irreversible.
Yep, so the irreversible change has happened.
Yeah.
Policy, ideas, the time has come.
And
Positives, definitely, yep.
And frankly, the mandate of the current elections also speaks to the vision, the sagacity of the Indian citizen. Right? Because too strong a party is also not good for a democracy. Right? So they've brought a certain level of humility.
Calibration.
Need to collaborate, need to work together, which I think is a great sign from the people.
Okay.
Say we support you, but guess what? We need to have checks and balances. So.
Good, yep. So, Mr. Anand, the other part that I want to actually seek your indulgence is Dr. Kamakoti mentioned about Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam. And the G20 theme, One Earth, One Family, One Future, has a lot of sustainable economics behind. I mean, it's a profound message, but if you push back and understand what is the economics undercurrent, there is a lot of, sustainable economics in that, which later people realized. So in your opinion, you've been in the area of economics and public policy. What is your take on Prime Minister's understanding of, is it just an accidental coinage, or there was a deep thought about this theme itself, which has got a lot to do with soft economic policies?
The first question I asked Balu sir when I entered the hall today was, sir, I read the book. I did not see a very overt or a direct economic message coming out of the Prime Minister's vision of economics in this book. Balu corrected me, it's in the last chapter, he said indirectly. But I found some common messages around development, goals around development coming in the book. But I must tell you one thing, sir, wherever the Prime Minister has spoken, he is obsessed with ensuring that India becomes the third largest economy in quick time. We are fifth, we have to get to third. The world GDP is $100 trillion, we are at 3.5. We represent 1/6 of the world population. We need to get to 5%, 7%, 8%, 10% of the world GDP, and that I think is clearly in his mind. And whatever his actions are, in terms of his policies, last mile, ensuring money to the poor, upliftment of the downtrodden, mass development, getting states to align with the central economic policies, is all to ensure that in the world stage, we don't lose out as our ranking in economics. That is coming out irrespective of the messaging that comes in various places.
Yeah.
Is my
All the indices.
sir, am I correct, sir? I don't know.
But also the acceleration is very real, right? So it's taken us, let's say 70 years or 75 years to hit that 3.5 trillion. But the next 3.5 trillion will come 5 to 7 to 8 years. So that acceleration is set in, which also speaks to the momentum, right? And aspiration levels have gone up. We are, that chappan inka chata, it applies to every Indian now,
Yep.
not just him, right?
Very true, very true. I'll shift to questions from the audience. Maybe I'll begin with the first question to the author himself. I was also equally inquisitive. One of the audience, they want to know, how did you catch hold of this title, Power Within?
Yeah, I think it's,
Is it because of your close proximity with the Prime Minister who has this knack of coining good terms? So Kovin was an example. So Power Within.
that's a story by itself. Part of my research, and much earlier than now, I re-looked at the book. It's a very popular book in the West, which public leaders generally refer to. The book is titled The Myth of a Strong Leader. It's by Archie Brown. He analyzes leadership of 5 major leaders around the world, the global north. Even you should understand and appreciate where the global north comes from. For them, the rest of the world has to align to their thinking. Otherwise, you are backward. Now, they can't figure out India, so you must be backward. Now, and because they can't figure out Indic wisdom, and they call us backward and they're homogenized. Their understanding of human rights, their understanding of democracy, their understanding of public administration is what the world should apply to. If you don't know what we are doing, then you are the fools and ignorant ones. So in that context, Archie Brown's book is very thoroughly researched, very huge book, and I admire his work. But I realized one thing very strong. The Indic understanding of leadership, and there's some slight variation from Rajiv was also explaining this, is that people, in India we don't celebrate the leader. Krishna is not celebrated actually. It's a Bhagavad Gita which is celebrated. So we shouldn't forget that. We celebrate the acts of leadership. And we were talking about followers. The West gets its identity of a leader only if they are followers. Whereas in India, we don't care. It is not about I doing the work or I seem to be doing the work. It's about the work at the center. We being the instrumentality of change, not being the person seen to be doing the change. Karma Yoga is all about going beyond the doership and the enjoyership. Whereas in the West, if you're not seen as a doer, you have no respect as a CEO of a company at all. You have to be the boss. If Kamakoti doesn't act as a director of IIT, he's useless. That's how the West perceives it. Whereas for us, it's his actions that enable IIT to reach a level that it's reached today is what we matter. So for me, I understood that Archie Brown's appreciation and metric of measuring leadership was from the expressions of the acts of an individual by exerting power on the others. For them, how much I can influence you to follow what I say. That is what leadership is all about. So it's an expression of power without. And they can never understand. And for them, Modi is not a strong leader, or it's a myth. Whereas the strength for us, and Arthashastra says it so beautifully, and I think though we don't really refer to Kautilya nowadays, I think it's important we get it narrative back into our rooms. He talks about only two responsibilities, whether Bhishma in his conversation with Yudhishthira about Rajadharma, or Kautilya, and later on Swami Mitranji educated me about the Ramayana, and I went back and read a little deep about it, but I had written the book by then. So there, everywhere if you see, there's one thing very powerful, Kautilya distills it out. He puts it in 2 lines. He says the only responsibility of a public leader is Lokasangraha and Yogakshema. And that captures everything. But he says the only person who can be called a Raja or the ruler is not only the person who can enable this, but he says the ability to enable this will come only if you're Indriya Vijay. And the power is not about I controlling you, it's about I controlling my Indriyas. And that is the power within. And if you look at Prime Minister Modi, I have never seen him angry, nor has anybody in the 50 years that I have talked to people. I talked to a lot of people in the research. I've seen him angry. He never is, as much as he's passionate about wanting to do the farm laws, he was. Doubling farmers' income, he believed in it. He said, Swaminathan committee report talked so much about it, we have to institutionalize it. And a year later, when he's withdrawing it, he has the same emotion. The samatvam that you can see, that the beauty of that I'm not disturbed either by, he would not have celebrated if he had doubled the income as much as he didn't really, he had the humility to say, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't understand the people properly, I didn't package it properly, maybe I made a mistake, it's okay, let's move on. And both the events I have seen. And that equipoise, that Siddha Pragnate that we all read about, he manifests. So to me, that is power within. How many of us can, I go through a lot every day, and 20 million civil servants of this country, and Mission Karma Yogi has to deal with them, all kinds of, they come in all kinds of packages. Now we look at one recent example of Maharashtra and we ask ourselves, what did we do wrong in the training, right? As well, the whole training collapsed. At the same time, the Deputy Commissioner of Maharashtra who brought it to the attention of the government and acted on it is also trained by the same system. We never celebrate him. So some of this country has got its own measurements wrong. And when somebody appreciates my work, we feel, wow. And somebody says, what nonsense you have written in this report. We get so deflated, next 1 week I can't work. But this man, 78% appreciation still doesn't trouble him. 400 seats or not, 240 seats or not, I think his desire to build a Vikasit Bharat has not changed. Yep. I think that is the beauty of the leadership.
Great. About self.
That's the power within.
Yes. Just a leading question to Professor Kamakoti on this, because the question that's come from Tamil Chelvan from Bangalore. Now you're also in public service actually, you head a public institution. So Modi's leadership lessons on navigating controversies and criticisms. You know, anything that happens anywhere, you know, if it is an IIT Madras director will be confronted. Likewise, you know, anything that happens in India, everybody, you know, says Prime Minister Modi. So how does he navigate criticism and controversies?
First thing is I have given my WhatsApp number to all the students. Okay. So morning I get today upma is bad. I say, okay, I will look into it. Right? So one thing is that we respond. 2 lessons I have learnt. One is that if we are wrong, if something is wrong, the next moment go and apologize. It solves all the problems. This I have seen I've seen quite some time. And a great example is about the formulas which Balu sir just mentioned. This is a very, very important trait for a leader. The second thing is my Guruji Paramacharya of Kanchi once gave Upadesha to my father. See, when you go up, there is only one bank account, Punya Papa account. You can't take 1 rupee away. Right? Punya Papa. Lord, you reduce your Papa and increase your Punya. Both is good for you. So somebody unnecessarily scolds you or criticizes you without no fault of yours. Be very happy your Papa is reducing. Somebody praises you, anyway you are happy, so be happy always. So last 2.5 years, if you since I have taken over as director, you can see any of my photos. Tell me one photo where I look morose, I'll change my mind. So I'm always smiling. Right? So these two are the ways by which we can handle anything, everything we have faced. There were 5 suicides in the campus in 6 months. We could not understand the reason. When we went deep, there were lot more things. Some of this we should have done. When we were rebooting from COVID, we failed to look at some of the personal issues or the mental wellness. So we went ahead when we started implementing, but at all points of time, these two were there. If I am wrong, go and apologize immediately. I'm sorry. If the other thing is, be happy always. Thank you.
Well, this question to Mr. Rajiv, please wear the hat of an ex-McKinseyan. This question is from Srinivasan. This is about succession planning. You would have given a lot of strategic consultancy on, corporate succession and all of that. Well, Modi is struggling at this age, is hardworking, doing everything. But India needs more Modis. So how is he going to create more Modis?
No, I feel there's plenty already created. And so that's the momentum and the trajectory that the country is on, and the energy level that has gone up across all spheres of life, whether it's a bureaucracy, whether it is the private sector. Look at how the public sector is so vibrant now. The Reserve Bank of India has given the highest ever dividend back to the government. Never in the history of the Reserve Bank has this kind of a dividend gone. So I feel every public institution, every public servant is operating at an energy level that is much beyond where they were maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And so I think with or without Prime Minister Modi, this engine will continue. That's why I feel it is irreversible. It's who we choose to put there, and each political party has their own way of electing the next leader, and that process also is well established. We know some parties how they elect. We know other parties that there is a process that they follow. That's also, I think, clear to the citizens of the country. So I feel there's enough and more successors ready, and all of them are equipped to carry the agenda forward.
That's good news.
This is, again, it will just continue.
That's good for the
Positive
country.
Momentum, right trajectory.
Yes.
Irreversible.
So the systemic transformation is in place. That's good news for the country, actually. So friends, there are a lot of questions, but I'm asked to finish this by 7:30. Professor Kamakoti actually narrated the Kasi Tamil Sangamam experience, and I was also fortunate to very closely work with him both the versions. Another personal experience that I want to share before I close, this Sengol event that happened in the new building of the Parliament. I was so privileged to be participating in that event because I was given the responsibility of bringing all the Adinams together. And if you had noticed the photos, I was the only person inside the Parliament building wearing white shirt and white dhoti. Otherwise, the rest were all in saffron. That was the only reason, I could be differentiated. Otherwise, I would have been an Adinam myself if I had gone in a different dress. But what resonated me at that point of time was there was a specific question from the PMO as to how should the Prime Minister greet the Adinams. I said typically, the way in which we do Vandanam to Gurus is we have to prostrate before them. And I did not venture to say anything other than this, just this statement. But the next day morning, it was it was a pleasant surprise to see the Prime Minister doing Shashtang Namaskar to the entire Adinams who assembled there. Just, it was demonstrating the amount of hope, faith, belief that he has in such a civilizational parampara that we have to be so privileged about, very proud about this. And that's one of the reasons why this Kasi Tamil Sangamam and this Sengol event in the parliament, I mean, these are all things that makes us feel that he has touched every Tamilian's heart that way. Friends, as Dr. Bala said, the book is there. Uttamam, please buy a copy. Ati Uttamam, please read it. Ati Uttamam, please live by it. Because that's the biggest contribution that you can make. Because once you do it, then you will realize that all that was talked here, why Bharat has a great future, because it has a greater past. Thank you very much.
I think 30 seconds is a closing remark.
You want to do the closing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want 30 seconds. I'm asking for it because I think when there's a book, you have to write an author's name. And you would have seen, people think acknowledgement is just written because the author has to write it. This book is a collective effort, and I had a team of 6 researchers who work day and night, and I can be very demanding taskmaster. Right up to my student, she was my student in the past, but she's now a very established consultant. Being an editor of the book, I'm fortunate in Chennai, we have Hema and DK Hari here. So there's so many people, every page was, they actually had the courage to simply say, this is not right, you should do it this way, you should write it this way. This is missing. Professor Mahadevan at Bangalore, so many people. And I think I am just the instrument. Finally, it is about India's leadership for the world, to be the real Vishwaguru or the Jagat Guru that we can all become. Or the other way of looking at it in a very simplistic way is bringing out the real power within each of us, the real leadership that is waiting to be expressed. Now, for too long, India stood in front of a mirror, criticizing the dust that is sitting on the mirror, saying, oh, the English colonized us, they did it to us, they did this to us. It's so stupid. We want the white man to come and wipe the dust and say, this is India. But today we have a Prime Minister who's wiped the dust away, brought us a civilizational reflection that we truly can carry forward. But we need to see a reflection in that, take the confidence that this is something which is precious, and live it. Only then this book and the collective effort that's gone into creating this will have its meaning. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, what a fabulous evening this has been and what a fabulous discussion we had. Thank all the viewers. We have over 630 viewers watching this online, and thanks for all sending those questions. Unfortunately, we have a very, very limited time. So may I now request President MMA, Mr. Mahalingam, Mr. Belraman, past President MMA, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, and other committee members, of course, to join us on the stage and honor the dignitaries. Ladies and gentlemen, we here have a practice of only giving books as mementos because you're all such good readers. We'll give you one more book to go back and read. So this book is published by MMA. It's got a collection of 21 best speeches in the last 10 years that have been delivered at MMA. I'm sure it will be a pleasure to go back and also read back. My request to the committee members to hand over a copy to each of the panelists, please.
Thank you, sir. It's a privilege for you to come. Thank you, Rajiv.
Sir, one photo. Sir,
Come. You are a election commissioner for the MMA.
ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here this evening on a Saturday evening, and thanks all the viewers watching us online. Get back home safe. Good night.